Good morning, Vikings fans. This is Morning Joe's, and I am your host, Joe Johnson, owner of PurplePTSD.com, VikingsTerritory.com, and Purple Territory Radio. I'm here with, I chugged an energy drink before the show started. That was a mistake. I'm here with Mr. Joe Oberly, who I believe was chugging a different kind of energy drink last night and is a little worse for wear. Joe is the editor for PurplePTSD.com, VikingsTerritory.com, and he also writes for the Sports Post. How you doing, man?
I've had my Mountain Dew, so I'm ready to roll.
Ooh, game fuel, just like they were promoting on KFan this morning. Really quickly, like a programming note, if you followed this show for any amount of time, and especially if you subscribed to it, you probably unsubscribed because when we expanded into Purple Territory Radio throughout the season, we added a lot of shows, and the way the software was working at the time was that we couldn't separate the shows from one another without paying like for 20 different licenses, and the licenses are like $150 a month. And so unfortunately a lot of people were unsubscribing because they were getting 12 other shows, one of which was in Spanish. I was getting messages like, why is Morning Joe's in Spanish this week? It was really confusing, and it just sucked for everybody. And so luckily we found a way around that, and so now every show on Purple Territory Radio has its own feeds. If you go to Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and like any other podcasting platform like Podbean or whatever, you will be able to...
Were your messages like, como mañana José en español?
Yeah. ¿Dónde está el baño? And so it's great news. We're super excited about that. And that works for all the different shows, whether it's Bleeding Purple, About the Labor, Load the Box, so on and so forth. And so stay tuned. I am working on PurpleTerritoryRadio.com as we speak. It should be up in about a week. And we're super excited for the future. So I wanted to thank everybody for kind of hanging with us through that, because it was such a pain in the ass and it was keeping me up at night. But such is life. There's been a lot of news this week. I wanted to touch on a couple things really quickly, or rather just one thing that per the way this show always works is we got off the air last Friday, and then the prefer move was announced like 2 seconds after we got off air. And so we did discuss it, whether or not we believed he should come back, and we had differing opinions on that. And then I did a live video response, not knowing that he elected to leave. I thought that they cut him loose, because I still believe that should have been the case. But they offered him a contract extension, and he decided to go to browner pastures, literally, and then go to Cleveland. And so,
which is where he's from.
It makes sense.
Yeah, that's where he's from. He's going home to coach special teams at the Brownies.
Were you surprised by that?
Not completely. I was a little disappointed because, like you said, I thought he's one of the best special teams guys in the league, so they say.
That's a low bar.
I mean, that's pardon me.
I said that's a low bar then.
I knew you'd be not take to that kindly, but he, I thought he improved him here for a while, but maybe things were starting to go sour, and maybe they knew the plans of the Vikings that unfurled, since that point too, because things have been fast and furious in the coaching room of this organization. So maybe they didn't offer him a good enough contract. He offered him one that said, okay, here's your minimal raise, and he's probably thought I could get a bit better raise somewhere else. Browns are an up and coming team, so now's the time, and I can go home and maybe retire there or something. Who knows? But
Yeah, I don't want to rehash the same talking points as last week in regards to like why I don't think he should be here. I do want to say though that I think it's relatively crappy that he would leave, considering I do feel like I mean, depending on how you feel about it, it's just in regards to the field goal kicking and punting. His record of having a new guy at both positions like every year and a half. They kept him on from the Leslie Frazier staff. It kind of felt like they stuck with him through thick and thin through the Chris Cluey stuff. Name drop, because actually Chris Cluey is going to be on the show next Wednesday. But yeah, it seemed like they were relatively loyal to him, and that he didn't go both ways. But that's not out of his character, from what I understand.
What's not out of his character? To leave?
To be a prick, basically.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a new talking point. Very good.
And I don't use that lightly. I don't. You taught me early on not to personally insult people. At least on the show. You know how I am off air. I'm like a complete diva. Did you just make eye contact with me? But yeah, whatever. But as you mentioned, there's been a ton of coaching moves all around the league, and I wonder, we didn't really have a chance to talk about this. I know that you covered it on the site, but were you at all surprised, not perhaps, they bring in DiFilippo. Apparently Zimmer didn't want him in the first place. Stefanski was always his guy. Now we have Stefanski, thank God, sticking around for at least another season. And they turn around and
does he only have a 1-year contract?
I don't know. That's why I said at least.
All right.
I don't know the terms of his contract, but I do find it kind of odd that they would bring in Kubiak as like a de facto offensive coordinator .2. I mean, we saw how that worked with Norv Turner and Shermer and Sperano all in the same office, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to work this way, but it seemed to undercut Stefanski a little bit, or a lot, just at face value.
I didn't see it coming. I mean, it kind of came out of the blue when it started happening. I think that happened shortly after we got off the air too, I've warmed up to it. Right off the bat, I agreed with you. It sounded like, look, Stefanski better be on board with this. And
yeah.
Thought it's that he probably will be. I think that, what's his name? Ben Lieber, as I had written about, had said on KFan that he was concerned that Kubiak was the kind of guy that didn't want to stay in his lane and would get in there and start messing. And now he's got right to roam all over the place because he's his assistant head coach, special advisor that can, say this or that. But he is bringing his kid on, and I think he wants to probably have him succeed. And I think he probably has a better awareness how to do things. You look at the guy's track record. He's around Denver for their 3 Super Bowls in one form or fashion, I believe, and he's been a head coach in Texas. I think Zimmer really misses the whole Sperano dynamic, where he had another experienced guy that he could talk to, and someone on the offensive side of the ball, so that if Zimmer saw something that he could talk it over with him, and so I'm hoping that's part of what his role is. He's also a guy, so they say, likes to run the ball, and as we all know, that's right up Zimmer's alley. So I think, and I don't mind Stefanski having a little oversight. He might be ready for this move. He did get interviewed for a head coaching job, blah, blah, blah. But to be honest, he doesn't have a huge play calling track record. And here's someone that can maybe guide him. And Kubiak does stay in his lane and does, just advise rather than, take over.
Yeah.
That's a fine thing. There's a lot of people that speculated, well, Zimmer better, have his head on a swivel too, because now there's another hen in or fox in the hen house, right? And
in regard to his own job?
Yeah, I mean, people have said that. Now that if things go south mid-season, they can jettison Zimmer, who doesn't have a contract after this year, and then they got a ready-made head coach to step in. But Zimmer wouldn't do that if he felt threatened like that. And things I've been hearing in the background is that Zimmer is definitely on board with this hire of Kubiak and sees it as a benefit to him. And he's not the kind of guy that's going to do something stupid and, like I said, bring another in there. I don't think his job is threatened. So I think it. If Kubiak is an advisor and rather than a Trump guy, who's going to come in there and take over, not Trump, but who's the guy that says I'm in charge during the Iran Contra thing, whatever. I'm in charge. What is that guy's name? Anyway,
North?
No, not him. The assistant, maybe the Secretary of State for Reagan when Reagan got shot. That's what it was.
Okay.
Whatever that guy's name is. But if he does that, I think it could really work out. I think Stefanski can use the help. He can use the other guy to bounce, the other set of eyes on his plans and to bounce ideas off and someone to say, well, you might want to do this here or do there. But if it's a power play, then it's a problem. But I guess I don't foresee that myself.
So I have so many thoughts about this. First of all, let's look at Kubiak. Like you said, he was in Denver. I believe his title was personnel advisor.
At one point, but he was head coach out there too.
Yeah. So he's a good guy, I think, for especially building an offensive line. Denver's offensive line finished 6th best in the league. I looked up before the show this season. And if you look at all the teams that are playing this weekend, it's like 1, 2, 3, and 9 in regards to offensive line quality. And I do think that beyond that this move signifies, it's like the 10th example that we've had of how all in this entire team from top to bottom is on winning a Super Bowl. They're leaving nothing to chance. The only thing that I question about the move is whether or not Stefanski feels like his, one of his jobs is to fill out the offensive staff of coaches. And I wonder if he's a little perturbed by Kubiak bringing in his son. I do believe that, what's his name, Brian Pariani, the new tight ends guy, I think that was a Kubiak move.
Yep.
At least the timing implies much.
Dennison might be the O-line coach. There's I don't know what Dennison's first name is, but that would be another Kubiak guy. That's a good point.
Yeah, you wonder why maybe they didn't hire him. Maybe he didn't want. Maybe they talked to him about being the OC, and that was where the delay was with Stefanski, and he said, I don't want to do it full time, but I would love to, be like you said, another set of eyes on things. I just don't want there to be any bad blood or anything like that. But I do definitely think that Zimmer, as he's progressed as a head coach, not unlike a conversation you and I had last night, he's very aware of his limits, and he perhaps just, he doesn't necessarily not trust Stefanski, but he doesn't really know that aspect of things well enough to say one way or another completely. And so maybe he wants to have a sort of Abraham Lincoln-esque cabinet. God, we're really throwing out these political references.
Yeah. Alexander Haig was the name I was searching for. So sorry.
Okay. Lincoln was famous for having all these competing views on his cabinet.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what he wants. He just wants to double and triple check everything, and that's fine. I mean, there's clearly a lot of things that have to happen for this offense during this offseason, from the coaching side of it, but also obviously they're going to be hoping to basically build the offensive line, or at least 2 or 3 spots on it.
You make a good point about him not being able to hire a staff. I'm sorry to interrupt. Strikes me. It strikes me that that's a possible. That could be a possibility. But then, God, he was also interviewing for head coaching job, and he didn't get it in Cleveland. But he certainly would have had to hire his own staff there.
Yeah.
I kind of like the Lincoln metaphor. I mean, the Lincoln cabinet metaphor, where it does seem that's what Zimmer likes. Because at one point there was 4 head coaches on this team just a couple of years ago when Trevor and Shermer and him and Sperano were on the team. So I think it was probably good for Zimmer, who is in his 6th year, but he is still a first-time head coach. And he probably, you get enough people sitting around the campfire and you can throw around ideas, and this happened here and this is how you avoid that, and blah, blah, blah. I think it also allows him to go over and spend more time with his defensive crew and who slipped a little bit this year. And if he's got more offensive plans, he can kind of let that. I mean, he can say what he wants, but hopefully he trusts those guys to get done what he wants and let them handle the details. So I don't know.
That was one of the takeaways I saw from other sites' articles, which was basically that it allows Zimmer to really focus on getting the defense back to where it was. Zimmer strikes me as a guy who pulls a full Howard Hughes in the off season and watches tape and puts Kleenex boxes on his feet, and
lets his fingernails grow.
Yeah, pretty much. Peas in jars. He really wants to put together this perfect team and kind of find out why things didn't work, and that worked against the team in the beginning of the season. At least the defense, as we discussed a lot. He came in with all these super complicated variables. If this happens, then you do this, but this might happen, so also do these 3 things. And that hurt the defense, and once they simplified things got better. But as we're seeing, I mean, look at the Packers. A lot of people were, from what I saw, at least on a national level, I know the Packers fans are all for it. I've talked to my couple guys that I usually bounce ideas off of that are Packers fans, who I at least respect as much as you can respect Packers fans. Wow. And they seem enamored by it. But a lot of the articles are like, we don't get it, but it makes sense because the league is going towards these 30-year-old coordinators. And if that's the case, then Zimmer's got a lot of work on his hands, because it seems like they're revolutionizing the game a little bit. A lot of these coaches are guys who have been bounced around the league a lot. There's not a lot of defensive-minded coaches being hired outside of the NFC North.
Vic Fangio, or Vince Van,
yeah,
the Bears defensive coordinator.
Where did he end up?
Denver.
Okay.
And he couldn't get. There was Kubiak was out there, and they couldn't see eye to eye, which is another factor here. I mean, he was trying to stay on with them on the offensive side of the ball, and they couldn't strike a deal for some reason. So that's why Kubiak became available to Zimmer, to the Vikings. So, and I think Kubiak wanted to have his whole cadre of coaches out there. And instead, he's bringing them all here, and the Vikings are doing a wholesale change in there, which does kind of surprise me. I can't believe all the coaching turnover that is happening right now at TCO. So it's kind of interesting. I'll say one thing about all the young guys: none of them have won a Super Bowl yet, have they? The guys that are still winning the Super Bowls are.
Doug Peterson's new. I think he's in that school of revolutionary offensive-minded guys, but he's
a little old.
And Favre. And
Bill Belichick is still winning Super Bowls. So
yeah.
Andy Reid is in the championship, and so is Sean Payton. So when one of those guys, Sean McVay, the leader of the crew, wins one, then you got to sit back and say, okay, this is for real. But I'm not going to deny it. Another thing we'll have to talk about when I see you have it on the agenda, because I was DeFilippo, and I brought him up last week as not even getting a sniff, and then a week later, here he is.
I thought of that. It was surprising because you didn't hear, he went into hiding, it seemed like, after he was let go, and you wondered if he would get another shot at a coordinator position, or if he would take a year off or whatever. But he seemed, speaking of that new school of young guys, he seemed primed to be one of the new head coaches this next season, and that didn't happen. And it seems like he's going from one the Vikings went to the conference championship and lost. The Jaguars did the same thing. They put up a better fight at least. And a lot of people are saying that one of the main components of his hire in Jacksonville is obviously the Nick Foles thing. And the current head coach came out and said that he said, Nick who? When they asked him that, and because he can't answer it, it would be tampering at this point, so you're not going to get a straight answer one way or the other, but you have to think that's what they're looking to do.
Oh, you think so? You think they're going to sign Nick Foles?
Yeah, I do.
Interesting.
Bortles is garbage.
Pardon me?
Bortles is bad.
Yeah, it's curious. I guess I'm happy for him because I don't think he was a terrible guy. But you know dang well that all Vikings fans are going to be watching how things transpire out in Jacksonville after that, because we all want a little justification that the Vikings made the right move in jettisoning DiFilippo. So we'll have our eyes on that. It's funny that those two teams do have this similar trajectory. They both went to the championship games a year ago with really good defenses, and then kind of fell. Both missed the playoffs, So and because of their offenses, so it's kind of fascinating,
And you got the idea from Jacksonville's defense, especially that you didn't really get this with the Vikings defense as much, but they were just tired of bailing out the offense and having to play perfect. And they lost that. It's such a cliche, but the NFL is so different year to year, and that's why it's important to win when you catch that lightning in a bottle, because you can lose it and never get it back again.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how quick it changes. You're right. I used to think it was cliche and it was lip service from the players, but when I heard Harrison Smith adamantly saying every year is different. This is not last year. This is this year, and it's a new team. And so when that guy who doesn't say a whole lot, but when he does it with an edge. You listen to him, and it's true. I mean, things can change so quickly in this league. Which is why the goddamn Patriots are an amazing.
It is amazing.
Yes.
We were going to touch on the conference games anyway, but it is insane that they've made it to 8 straight conference championships now. I mean, I know people talk about the different scandals that they've had, so on and so forth, but people in sports especially take greatness for granted, I feel like, a lot of the time. But I will never see something like this again, or it'll be a long time until we do. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, you're right, and you have to. As much, you certainly attribute a heck of a lot of it to Brady, but I even do more so to the system Belichick has set up there. He's had mostly continuity throughout of it in his subordinates coaching ranks with Josh McDaniels and Patricia, but that's starting to change a little bit. But it's Belichick. For some reason he gets the best out of his players, and if they don't like it or he senses they don't want to play ball, he's done with them. I mean, Randy Moss, he got out of him what he could and said, okay, this one is going to go south here in a minute, and he jettisoned him, and it did,
And he got a third rounder for him?
Exactly. Now he's got Cordero Patterson after trading away the pick, or getting a draft pick for Cordero from the Vikings, and now he has him on his team and resurrecting his career. It's amazing,
Yeah, and it's different now too. Back about 10 years ago, you would always hear of these guys taking pay cuts to play for the Patriots, and you don't have as much as that now, as much of that now. But yeah, it's just they're consistently good, and I know it drives people crazy. I am a huge Big Ten guy, so I don't dislike Brady at all. I actually like Brady, just because he makes Michigan look good, because somebody has to. But yeah, it's amazing. Let's actually talk about those games really quickly. The Chiefs and the Patriots met earlier in the season. It was in Foxborough, which I think is huge. there was like 1,000 yards of total offense. The statistics, I saw someone on Twitter post the statistics from that game, and it was just insane. It was reminiscent of the Super Bowl last year, actually. And then, so you have this old guard team coming in on the road, been here before, not very nervous. And then you have this young team with, Mahomes, who is an MVP candidate, is apparently unflappable. I mean, I've watched a few of his games. I watched the game where he had all those interceptions, and he just came back and didn't matter. I mean, granted, he threw more interceptions, but he doesn't seem to be the type of guy that kind of loses his composure. You got to wonder how much of a difference. What was that guy? Why can I never remember this guy's name? The guy that they cut. That the Chiefs cut for
Alex Smith. They traded him to Washington.
No, the guy that got cut because he.
Oh, Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt. I keep thinking that Chardy and West guy. Kareem Hunt.
Just think Lamar Hunt's grandson. Just kidding.
What a difference he would have made as an X factor in that game. Speaking of which, it looks like the Bears are kicking the tires on that, and that would be terrifying. I am a huge fan of football, obviously. I really love skill players, game-changing offensive skill players, specifically. My dad went out of town. He came back with the Randy Moss rookie card. That's basically when I became a real Vikings fan in my mind was 98. And, I would not back that move for the Vikings just because I think that's such a gross thing to do. I do feel like Nagy put that out there to perhaps gauge what the reaction from the fan base would be. I think his quote was, he's a good man, or he's a good kid, and it's like, well, I don't really, people make mistakes, but he's made more than one, and you have to kind of wonder how much perhaps CTE is involved in that, which is also really crappy. But that's neither here nor there.
It is, because they only can put one running back in the backfield, maybe two at a time, and they got two already. So they've all gashed the Vikings here and there. So to me, it's not that big a deal. Let them have them. Let them have a running back controversy. I don't care.
Who do you got in the AFC game?
Well, I'd like to. I guess I to the extent of floating my own boat about. Before the Saints took their swoon and then came back this late season, I had picked them and the Chiefs to be in the championship. So I'm happy that those predictions are still intact, and so that's who I'm going with. Again, they're both the home teams now, and I kind of fell into the trap of the Chargers. This was the time to knock off the Patriots, and boy, oh boy, the Patriots certainly, showed me what that pick was worth. They came back they got healthy from their week off. They got rested, and they came back and just manhandled the Chargers. Oh my God, it was over after the I think the third series.
It really was.
And
so much for the bye week being a curse for these teams too.
What's that?
These, a lot of recently it's been said that getting the week off has been bad for teams, and then you have the 1 and 2 seed in both conferences.
Right,
playing,
I wouldn't say so. Anyway, I'm going to stick with the Chiefs in that game, but I'm a little more concerned about it now because the Patriots look so good. It's a good thing that it's in Kansas City. That'll be different. Kansas City played with the Patriots up in Foxborough earlier in the year. It was a long time ago, but they haven't. The Chiefs haven't really missed a step at line or at running back. That Damian Williams has taken over and done real well, and they still have a great passing game, and their defense played better last week. And I saw this morning they're going to get Eric Berry back, which can only help in the secondary. So.
Is the knock against them their run defense isn't very good?
I
thought I heard that last weekend, and I wonder how much whether or not Patterson will get some looks at running back again since he's been successful when they've given him the ball.
Yeah. I think that I'm just hoping for a good game. I'm just tired of the blowouts. I mean, as you're sitting here from watching a team that is not in the tournament, you want to see good football, and
it has the makings of being a great game.
Yep.
So when it comes to picks that we've made before the playoffs or earlier in the season, I had said that my preferred Super Bowl matchup. I was going to say my dream matchup, but that's way too much. Is the Chiefs and the Rams. I think that would be great for the league. I think that would be amazing. I also think keeping the Saints out of it would make me very happy. But I also said, that's my emotional pick. My rational pick is Saints-Patriots. In terms of the AFC game, in talking about Belichick like we just did, he had an opportunity to face this team once already this season. I'm sure he had drones with HD video cameras flying all over down there. I put a lot of stock in people having been there before and how important that can be. I ironically think it'll be a lower scoring game, around 30 or below. But I do think the Patriots are going to take it. And in regards to the NFC, I do think the Rams are actually going to take that one too. I wasn't too impressed by the Saints. Michael Thomas was amazing, which drove me crazy because I've always been harping about that Treadwell for Michael Thomas thing. But I feel like the Rams, and Dominican Sue stepped up. He's had the reputation for disappearing too, but he looked amazing. Outplayed Aaron Donald last week. And I think if that's the case this week, get some pressure on Breeze, they'll be able to win out. It'll come down to how well Goff plays. But they have so many weapons.
I was impressed how the Saints dug out of the hole they put themselves in, down 14-0 to the defending Super Bowl championships right out of the gate. I thought, oh, God. And, I had that was difficult for me to watch because I wanted both teams to lose somehow in that one last week. And I found myself going back and forth. And, so then when I was total bandwagon, as soon as the Saints got back up, I said, okay, I started justifying in my mind that, yeah, that's all right. We can get that's who I picked earlier. So get the Eagles out of there. So that's one team down. I mean, I wanted the Bears out, and now I got the Eagles out, and now I got to get the Saints out of there. Three I don't want in there. But part of me wants the Saints to go to the Super Bowl and get beat and let them taste that. See what that
I would not mind that one bit. That would be great. Not to mention because you'd have two Big Ten quarterbacks playing. But yeah, the Eagles, if not for former Bear Alshon Jeffrey.
Oh, man,
that was
That's
brutal.
A tough one.
Yeah,
that is a tough one. Yeah, I mean they were moving down there. I was looking towards a great finish, and oh my God, right through his hands. Ooh,
yeah.
That's it. He started running before he had it, and I mean he looked very Treadwellian in that
big time.
Yeah.
What else was there? So the Vikings are looking for a new wide receiver coach, and Randy Moss put out there on Twitter, asked me about coaching, I think was what he said, question mark. He's got his gig as an analyst, so I'm not sure he would want to lose that because that's a pretty great gig. And
Clickbait.
Yeah.
Clickbait.
He's just doing it for our reactions, I suppose. But that would be amazing.
Would it or wouldn't it? The guy's got no coaching experience. He knows the game. I get that. And he was a hard worker, so maybe he could inspire that. But you can't teach anybody to be Randy Moss.
That's true. I thought about it just because he got lucky in landing with Chris Carter, and I think Carter instilled this work ethic. The Moss method, if you ever watched that documentary about how hard he worked out, he learned all that from Carter. And I feel like perhaps he would be able to pass that along. Not to mention that Thielen would probably start on fire if Moss ended up being his coach. but there's not a whole lot there. The last big topic that I wanted to cover, and then we can perhaps stop talking about this for a while, was an article that was written by Adam Nelson, Purple PTSD and Vikings Territory, actually. He's a newer writer that we added right before the holidays, and he wrote an article, I believe, was Kirk Cousins worth it, or was Kirk Cousins the right move? I think it was the latter.
Yeah.
That got picked up by Bleacher Report. A lot of our articles we're basically giving Bleacher Report's Minnesota Vikings coverage is like 60% our stuff, which is amazing, and we really super appreciate that. And he basically broke it down by comparing Cousins this season to Alex Smith, Case Keenum, and Trevor Siemian. And the conclusion... The conclusion was that he was the right pick. It's hard to say just because, he was comparing the seasons that these players had, and it might have been different had they been in different circumstances.
That's right.
Keenum here versus Keenum in Denver. So you can't say for sure, but obviously that's part of what we do is try to figure this stuff out in a bunch of different ways. And so I was surprised by the response to it. We got about 20 comments on the site and like 50 others on social media. And there were a few detractors, but I think a lot of the people are kind of coming around to the idea that with a proper offensive line, this can work. I think I saw a headline from Vikings, from Daily Norseman or something. Cousins is the quarterback for the next 2 years. Get over it was the headline.
Deal with it.
Deal with it. There it is. There's no point in talking about. Someone was like, maybe we could trade Cousins for Keenum, and it's like, no, it's not going to happen. And so
nobody wants that contract.
No, yeah. Why would you? He definitely has to win a lot of people over. I've come to the conclusion that Cousins can be an elite quarterback in the right system. So an elite system quarterback, not an elite all-around Brady-type quarterback that can carry the team. He needs to be in a system that fits his talents and offsets his areas of concern. And I did feel at the time that they were hamstringing the entire offense by not investing in protecting him better, because I've said this a million times, but if I knew that he struggled under pressure, clearly the team knew that, and I think they felt like, okay, well, we can still, if he puts up 25 points with this defense only allowing 15.8, we're going to win 13 games again, and it doesn't work that way. I'm still a proponent of Cousins, but it has to be in the right circumstance, and so I really hope that, I keep saying the silver lining of Khalil Mack coming to Chicago might be that it'll force the team to get some offensive linemen, but on the other side of it, I've seen a lot of articles of people talking about how to free up cap space, and a lot of that involves getting rid of Riley Reif, Remmers, or both. And while Remmers has been a out-and-out liability at guard, you don't want to do. It was like the Alex Boone thing, which is just an example. I felt like once they got a little bit of depth, they lost it right away. And you can't really move Remmers back to tackle because O'Neal's playing so well, but I don't want them to do that too. But I would.
Here, Joe, stop.
No, I'm done. I was actually going to say I'm interested in your opinion on it.
Yeah, I saw that Daily Norseman thing, and it said resonated with me. I thought, yep, that's right. I didn't even need to read the article. I don't care, because everyone knows he's on a contract for 2 years. He has got a gargantuan contract that's guaranteed. You can't trade him. You can't do whatever. I've thrown out there several weeks ago on this show, and you and I have talked about it. Is can you renegotiate that? Can he do that? And I was thinking he could. And I would think he would. Yeah, I mean, I think you even put it up on as a message board question. Can you take a pay cut? And I think that's a good talker. To see. I don't know specifically if a guaranteed contract can be done, but I don't know why it couldn't be. I mean, you can always renegotiate a contract. Should he, if he wants the team to be able to get some decent players around him underneath the salary cap, I think he should. Like I said, I used to work with the Timberwolves, and Kevin Garnett's gargantuan contract hamstrung that team for a long time. So I think maybe we'll see some going on there. I think they would probably approach him. I would think Cousins is the kind of guy who would listen to that.
Yeah.
He knows he's get paid great money. So hopefully, if that's the case, they have to do that. But that's what happens. I will never. I don't think he would ever be an elite quarterback, in my opinion. But I don't know that. I'm not the kind of judge. I think he can be much better than he was, certainly the second half of the year, if you put a decent line around him. I don't think he's ever had that in his entire 7-year history. I don't think he's had a really good offensive line that he could just go back there and deal. I mean, at the beginning of the year, he was playing great under pressure, and he had me sold that, okay, this is the guy. This can, the stuff that we heard Max on him coming in, he was putting those to rest. While that stuff kind of started rearing its ugly head as the season went on, and it ended up costing us. I think you put a line around him, you fumble less. I think you give him some protection, because he does not sense the rush like Keenum did. Does that mean I want Keenum? No, I want a quarterback who can implement the entire offense and not just what you give Keenum to do. And I don't want it depending on luck. I think if you give Cousins time, he finds the receiver. He knows the defenses. He knows where his offensive players are going to be. He knows how to get the ball to him. He's got the strong enough arm. I think he can be better than he was and be very good with a solid offensive line. Now, does that not? Can you just get a new offensive line or a better offensive line overnight? I don't know. But you sure as heck have to try. Mel Kiper Jr.'s got the Vikings in his first mock draft taking an offensive tackle, which is, we know all these all mock drafts, who knows what, but it's no brainer. They have to do that. And then I saw somebody talking about who's that quarterback that just signed or agreed to come out into the draft? Murray.
Yeah.
Whatever his name.
Yeah, someone wrote an article about that on PTS.
Yeah, if he's there at 18, should the Vikings take him? Something to think about, too, because, you got to always be developing a decent quarterback. But if you take a quarterback in the first round, you're going to want to play him. And I don't think you do that to Cousins. I think, your window's open right now. Get the offensive line fixed. You got new coaching staff that may, as you said earlier about Kubiak, who could help build a decent offensive line. If that's the case, that's what you got to roll with and give Cousins a chance. And if you do that next year, then you'll find out whether or not he's the guy that you want. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, the term elite is obviously subjective.
Right.
But ironically, Cousins had one of the best statistical seasons of any Vikings quarterback ever, at least in my lifetime.
Yeah.
He broke that record for 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 or less interceptions, and a completion percentage of 70%. So the Cousins season, there's more to it than this, but you can really point to 3 games. And the 3 games coming down to 4 plays. The Buffalo game, 2 plays, the 2 fumbles. The Saints game, the 1 play, the pick 6. The first Bears game, the same thing. He only had 10 interceptions, but 2 of them cost them a game. And so it's really the how and the where of those turnovers. And I can't imagine somebody having 30%, like that devastating of a couple of picks. I've never experienced that. And if you can, so point being, if you can limit that perhaps not by putting as much of a handcuff on Cousins as they did for Keenum, but implementing a system where he gets rid of the ball quickly.
Yeah.
I'm all for it, and I think that he did show, like you said earlier in the season, people forget about that, but he was really standing tough in the pocket, and he was making some miraculous throws.
Mm-hmm.
I remember through like week 4 or 5 or something, I said, man, there's been like 3 touchdowns this year that are top 5 Vikings plays ever. I'm thinking of the couple to Thielen. I mean, it was just gorgeous, and I think they can get back to that is the point. And so everyone that wants to go to the scrap heap, like we said, it's not realistic anyway.
No, you don't want Simeon. You don't want Smith. His leg's broken, might not play again. And I, Keenum was that 1 year wonder. I mean, he's a good serviceable quarterback. I don't think he takes you to the next elite level that you want to go. I think we saw what happened there. So I mean, the articles itself. So Cousins, yeah, I think they made the right choice. Now you just got to figure out how to improve that choice that you made, right?
Yeah, despite all the doom and gloom and my anti-Zimmer leanings, they're really, really close, and I'm interested to see what happens. I do, speaking of 1 year, I do think Foles will suck in Jacksonville, but that's because it's Jacksonville. Anyway, yeah, we will end a little early because it's the off season and we can do whatever we want. Dagnabbit. So yeah, definitely. If you're listening to this live, look for the article on purpleptsd.com and vikingsterritory.com. There will be a bunch of different options to follow us on whatever platform works best for you, whether it's Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Play. Otherwise, we're on a ton of different stuff, Spreaker, Podbean, some weird Russian one. And so hopefully we can start to rebuild the audience that we had during the season, because our traffic is through the roof. A lot of it because of Bleacher Report, which again we're super excited about. But we will be back next Wednesday, as I mentioned. Chris Cluey is going to be on the show, which should be a great time. I will be posting in our message board and a few other places asking for people's help with questions. If you have any questions for him about his time with the team, about his time on American Ninja Warrior, about his strategic role-playing card game or video games, anything goes. He's a modern-day Renaissance man, and he's a really great guy. So tune in for that. That'll be great for us. He's been on the show once before, but that was about 2 years ago, so it should be fun. But with that, this has been Morning Joes. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week. Skol.